Okay, let's see here. So, yeah, the upper epidermis, this is a single layer of closely packed cells. Covered by a layer of waxy cuticle. Now, what does the cuticle do? It protects the epidermis, right? And it prevents excessive water loss through evaporation. So these are the two functions of cuticle. Also, another thing to note is that they are transparent to sunlight, okay? So they're transparent, so they allow sunlight, they don't block it. Okay. As I already showed you in the diagram that the upper epidermis does not have chloroplasts, okay? So they are not the one that are photosynthesizing, okay? Yeah. And then we can move on to the next one, which is the palisade mesophyll. So how to describe these ones? These are cells that are, longitudinal in shape and they're closely packed. Now they contain a lot of chloroplasts. Okay. So they're the ones who are participating in photosynthesis. Now moving on to spongy. Spongy mesophyll. These are irregular shaped cells. And as you saw, they're not really closely packed with numerous intercellular air spaces. Air spaces around them. Why are the air spaces necessary? First of all, for faster diffusion of carbon dioxide, which enters into the leaf through the stomata, okay, for all the photosynthetic cells, okay. They also contain, spongy mesophyll also contains a lot of chloroplasts, but not as much as palisade mesophyll. Okay. Yeah, another thing to note down is that the ones that I'm writing in blue, they're all the functions. right? That's an extra information that they're covered by a thin film of moisture, so that carbon dioxide can easily dissolve in it, and then obviously it can be easily taken up. Okay, yeah, within the mesophyll layers, there are vascular bundles, which contains xylem and phloem tissue. Now, what do they do? Let me mention xylem and phloem. Obviously, they bring the tissue, uh, they bring water and mineral salts to all the photosynthetic leaves, photosynthetic cells, to be distributed to the photosynthetic cells efficiently, and they also take away all the food products to other parts of the plant. Okay, so they're just there for transportation. To write it in blue because these are all the Okay, so are there any questions so far?
No.
Okay. Do you guys also need to know about bundle sheath?
I don't think so. I don't think it's in the syllabus.
Okay, yeah. So I think I mean I'll notice it if you have it because it will be in the transportation of water. There's a tissue called bundle sheath that surrounds the xylem and phloem. Okay, number 5, the last one is the lower epidermis. This is a single layer of closely packed cells. Again, optionally covered by a layer of cuticle. Okay, that's optional. Now let's talk about guard cells because we are going to actually study them in details. That is number 6. Guard cells these are bean-shaped, and interestingly, they also contain chloroplast. So chloroplast containing cells located in the lower epidermis, okay? Bean-shaped, chloroplast containing cells located in the lower epidermis. Now, what do they do? What are the functions? They basically control the opening and closing of the stoma. Okay. Of the stoma. What is the stoma? That is the gap between the guard cells. Okay. So what is, why is the stoma there, if you ask me? The stomata basically allow carbon dioxide to diffuse in and oxygen to diffuse out, and also water vapor to escape, okay? So these are the 3 things that stomata, so stomata allow carbon dioxide to diffuse in, oxygen out, oxygen and water vapor. Is it even visible?
Not the last part, like the last line isn't really visible.
Okay. Okay, no problem. I'll rewrite it. But how much can you see? Do you see the control, the opening and closing of the stoma, the gap between the guard cell? Okay,
Yeah.
great. I just wrote that stomata allow carbon dioxide to diffuse in and oxygen and water vapor to diffuse out.
Abu, I had a question. The chloroplast is where, because of the chloroplast, photosynthesis occurs, right? So
Yeah.
wherever there's chloroplast, photosynthesis takes place.
Yes. Even in the
In the
guard
leaf.
cell.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, got it.
Okay.
Phone.
Okay, now we are done with the internal leaf structure, and we will study the operation of guard cells in details. So how do they actually open and close the stoma? Okay. All right. I'm just going to draw a diagram first so that you can understand everything. So like I said, they're bean shaped. So like that. And the other one is like that. Okay. Yeah. Can think of, these are all the epidermal cells beside them. And these are all the chloroplasts in the guard cells. Now, this opening right here is the stoma. Okay. And these external parts, these are all the lower epidermis, so the epidermal cells. Okay. This right here is a guard cell. All right. I think it's clear. So this one shows an open stoma. Okay. Now we will draw a closed one. Okay. So this is closed stoma. Okay. Now, there are some points to note down. First of all, let's write them down. Firstly, plants open their stomata during the day so that carbon dioxide can get in, and they close the stomata during the night. Why do they do that? Because they want to minimize the water that is lost through transpiration. Okay. Okay, that is the first note. So plants open their stomata during the day to let carbon dioxide in, close it at night to minimize water lost by transpiration. What is transpiration? Do you know?
Yeah, I think it's the movement of water, right?
Exactly. So it's basically the process of the yeah, movement of water through a plant, and how it gets sucked up from the roots and all the way to its evaporation, okay, from the leaves and the stems and even the flowers. Okay, so let's write it down just so you know. Transpiration is the process of water movement through a plant and its evaporation. Okay. Next point is that the guard cells, they control the opening and closing of stomata through regulation of water potential within themselves. So I already told you in the last page that the guard cells, they control the opening and closing of stoma. But how do they do that? Through regulation of water potential within themselves. I already told you, I think in the diffusion chapter, what is meant by water potential and everything. So yeah.
Yeah.
Now you could ask me like why do the guard cells have chloroplast? Why do they need to photosynthesize? Because it actually provides them with the energy, uh, yeah, to work properly, to actually maintain that water potential. By the way, to maintain that water potential, their own water potential, they need potassium ions in their cells. That I'm going to talk about this in details just in a moment. So how do they regulate this, their own water potential? They regulate by taking in potassium ions into their cells, okay? So if there are more potassium ions in the guard cells, it means that the water potential of the cell is low, right?
Yeah.
And that will cause more water to enter the cell through osmosis. Okay, and then obviously if water enters the cell through osmosis, it will actually make it expand, and that's how the stoma will close. Okay. How should I write it down? So this right here, this layer, this thing, this is actually the cell wall of the guard cell, okay? The cellular cell wall, and it's quite thick on this inner side, okay? Yeah, so when water enters the cell, the side away from the stoma, so this one's, this cell wall, this actually expands more than the side that is framing the stoma. And this causes the cells to become curved such that such that the stoma actually opens. So I previously actually told it closed. That is wrong. I'm sorry about that. I just read my notes. It says it opens. Okay, I'm going to explain it again if you cannot understand. Just a moment. So this right here, this thing, this is also actually the cell wall of the guard cell. Okay, these are all the cell wall. Now, this part, the one that is facing the stoma, this is thicker than the other side, right? The cell wall on the other side, this is quite thin. So when, you know, when water enters the cell through osmosis, the cell will expand. So the cell wall on this side will expand even more than the inner side. So what will happen? It will actually become more curved, okay? And that's how this stoma will actually open, okay? Because the cell will become curved. Is that clear? Do you have any question?
No.
Okay. And then when there is excessive, water loss, even like during the day, the guard cell will lose that, that turgor pressure, and it will become flaccid. And so the stoma will close. So here the guard cell is actually flaccid, okay? And here it is turgid. That means the plant does not have enough water. So that's why it is closed. Why? So that more water is not lost through transpiration, okay? And here, guard cell is turgid. Why? Because there is enough water and so the stoma is open, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, great. Let me see if I'm following your syllabus. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm following it. Yeah, let's continue. By the way, just going to mention something. The diagram that I showed you. So this one. Oh, this one. This one. This is actually yeah. So this diagrams, these are of dicotyledonous leaf. Okay. So just so you are familiar with this term, dicotyledonous leaf, just so you know, because if somehow you get this in your question, draw a diagram of the internal leaf structure of dicotyledonous plant or leaf or whatever. Yeah, don't be afraid. It's the same thing that I drew here. So yeah, just clear করার জন্য বললাম, okay? If you want to know what is a dicotyledonous leaf, this is not included in your syllabus, I think, but yeah, there are two types of plants actually, like monocots and dicots, monocotyledonous and dicotyledonous. Actually, yeah, this division is made according to the the embryonic leaves that a plant will have, that a seed can have. Sorry.
I think we have it in our syllabus. I think it's in the transport and flowering plants chapter. I think I've read it once.
Okay, all right. So, but in your, like right now, I read in your syllabus that you only need to know the diagram for this one. So these ones are enough, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, now let's talk a bit more about the intake of carbon dioxide and the intake of water. So when like the carbon dioxide inside the leaf is used up by photosynthesis, so the concentration of carbon dioxide is less. Yeah, when